So, the government has launched a last-ditch effort to block Shamima Begum from returning to Britain as it claims her youth made her no less of a threat to national security. The jihadi bride who travelled to the Islamic State group in Syria back in 2015 is a terrorist risk because of her radicalisation and... what's that? Oh, desensitisation. Right, okay. Anyway, to violence. She's been desensitised to violence, the Supreme Court was told. Government lawyers said there was no guarantee that she could be monitored by MI5 and her return would expose the public to an increased risk of terrorism. But Lord Panic QC for Begum said that she could not play any meaningful part in her case from a refugee camp in Syria. He also outlined how detainees are not permitted visits from lawyers or to speak with them. So should Shamima Begum be allowed to return to the UK? Let's speak with Chris Daw QC, barrister, broadcaster and author of Justice on Trial, which is a book out now. Chris, I mean, the argument goes that the minute this girl left, gave up, renounced, whatever you want to call it, her way of life in this country, she bought into something else, as good as changing her nationality.
She was 15 years of age. I mean, God forbid that one of our children, Ian, should at the age of 15 be brainwashed by terrorists and effectively taken away from her country and tortured and desensitized and made to witness the most horrific violence and murder and beheadings at the instigation of foreign terrorists. And one day find herself in a refugee camp and be forbidden to come back from her own country where she was born.
You sound like a lawyer, Chris.
If that happened to a white child of British parentage who didn't happen to have a Bangladeshi grandmother, she would be allowed back into this country. It is only because she happens to have Asian heritage that we're in this situation at all.
Well, the Asian heritage, are you suggesting because she has this defence that the Home Office are putting forward, that the Bangladeshi component of her background allows a potential other citizenship, or are you saying it's because she's not white?
It's only because of the Bangladeshi grandparent that she's in this situation. If one of my children or one of your children was in this situation, they would be brought back and treated as a victim. They would not be...
Why would they be treated as a victim? We've talked about lots of people. There's been white people that have joined ISIS, that fella with the beard that gave it a go. The world's worst terrorist, I think he got blown up in about 7 days, so that didn't work out well.
15 years of age, Ian. He wasn't a child. We have a duty of care to children in this country.
She's not 15 now. She's 21 now and still holds the views pretty much that she held then. And where was the torture thing come from? Did you just make that up, Chris?
I'm sorry, say that again?
You said she was tortured.
Mentally tortured at the very least.
No, she went because she liked it. She went because she was very relaxed about what she was going to see. And she knew what it was all about. And because it was against her faith, she felt it was okay. And she retained that view up until a recent interview in 2019.
Ian, seriously, do you really think a 15-year-old is capable of understanding what's happening to her, what the brainwashing pressures are? When 15-year-olds are trafficked here by Eastern European gangs to act as child sex trafficking victims, they're treated as victims.
But I'm not aware of any evidence that she was brainwashed. I don't think she's put that forward as a defence.
No, but it's so obvious. 15-year-olds don't know what they're doing. 15-year-olds can't be trusted to make decisions to go and join a terrorist network. But there's something more fundamental here. The Court of Appeal decided back in July, and the Supreme Court is being asked to look at it again. The Court of Appeal decided that she has a right to be heard and has a right to have her challenge to this decision with her present in the United Kingdom so she can properly instruct lawyers and so that she can properly go through the legal process. That's what the Court of Appeal decided. And they decided it on very principled legal grounds. Let's put one myth to bed. If she came back to this country, she'd be arrested on terrorist charges. She would be remanded in custody. She would be in a high security prison. She would be no danger to anyone.
She'd be a huge expense to a lot of people as well, and of course someone who'd, you're arguing, Chris, with certainty that at 15 she couldn't have known anything of what she was getting into, and I would contend that fair play, she might have learnt along the way. But she had a broad idea of what this life was all about, and that was the attraction that her and her two friends had. They liked that idea, and when they got there, they liked it even more. They lapped it up. Beheadings were fine by these people.
Are we really this judgmental about the
Yes.
emotion of 15-year-olds? Oh, Ian, come on. That's not the country I grew up in. It's not the country you grew up in.
But this is the problem, isn't it? The problem with the country that you think you grew up in is that your view isn't reflected in the country. It's a very parochial, legal, establishment, liberalised view that you have, Chris, of how we should do business.
Let's go to East London and ask people in East London if they think she's being treated equally as a young woman of Bangladeshi heritage as would be any person of fully British heritage going back 2 or 3 generations. They won't agree with you, Ian. And I'm sorry that the fact that there are many people out there who think that this young woman should be left to die in a refugee camp when she was born in this country and has as much right to be called British as you do and I do.
As much right. So there's not even a cigarette paper between her status and mine. You don't believe that, Chris.
Of course I do. I believe that every child born in this country has a right to be a citizen until they die. Absolutely.
So nothing could happen to you along the way that would in any way dilute, diminish or eradicate your citizenship?
We didn't throw the Yorkshire Ripper out of the country for mass murder of young women and vulnerable women. He wasn't thrown out of the country. Do you know why? Because he didn't have a Bangladeshi grandmother. People are serious criminals, we lock them up in our prisons, we expose them to British justice, we let them have a fair trial. That's what we do, and that's what we stand for. If
I went to another country and I changed my nationality and I legally went through that process, I would cease to be the responsibility of this country. I would be the responsibility of the country that I'd adopted. And this surely has to sit in that category rather than your own imagined idea.
Her nationality. She's always been British. She's never been any other
nationality. I'm suggesting that whilst there is not there might not be a legal document to say it, but clearly this is somebody who absolutely relinquished her anything about her Britishness, her westernized existence, her upbringing, her background.
Honestly, I know. Listen, the real reason why you become the fastest growing radio station in the world is because you have me on to talk sense every few weeks.
Yeah, well, listen, I wouldn't disagree, but I think you've had that wig on too long. I think it's done something to your thinking up there, Chris.
Well, it's not left much hair on my head. The fact of the matter is,
keep it on then.
We're gonna agree to disagree on this. We need to stand for something as a country, and we don't stand for abandoning children because they make a serious and catastrophic mistake because they were manipulated by sophisticated individuals who were intent on destroying their childhood, destroying their youth, and destroying their lives and exposing them to danger and harm. We look after our young people if they commit a crime, and when they're adults, yes, let's prosecute them according to law, give them the rights that they have, and if they have to go to prison for the crimes they've committed to protect the public, that's what our system is there for.
Chris Daw, thank you. QC, with a robust defence of the system that we have, the values that we have. And that brings me right back to what I said at the very top of the programme, is the kind of the establishment thinking where Chris and some of his fellow lawyers and some politicians and some people who live mostly in Notting Hill will say, yes, absolutely right. We need to give this person a second chance because they are after an innocent waif of a schoolgirl. She's 21 and doesn't have a problem with beheading people. And I would argue that for too long, it's the one area of Donald Trump, who as anybody who listens to this regularly will know, I don't really have a lot of time for. And it's becoming, the man baby has now become even more of a joke, of course, as what's happening in trying to extrapolate him from the White House. However, one of the things that Trump did very well was things like this, where because of this idea that we rest on some curious old traditional template and we pretend it's about our values, we pretend it's what people, this is what we stand for, this is what's right, even though some people think it's controversial. What if that view is wrong? What if that position is wrong? What if Chris Daw's his liberal position, his establishment position is fundamentally flawed? And actually the progressive to use that word back on the very people that ordinarily would offer that up. The progressive way is to say, sorry, this person is no longer our problem.